Hello everybody, welcome to the stream. So today we've got a slightly new setup. The stream is coming to you from a secondary machine, so hopefully that will make the experience of coding on my main machine a lot better. And hopefully for you it means that you will not notice any difference other than I might not always look into the camera, but sometimes I might be looking here where my other machine is situated, but that should be fine. So, as is good tradition, when we start the stream, why don't you say hi? It's always great to know that other people are watching, not just me and my iPad that's sitting down here to just make sure that I notice when the stream is going down. So say hi, tell me how you're doing, tell me how the weather is like at your place. So here it is, it's pretty warm inside. So this is the temperature inside, so 28 degrees. Nice. The window is closed. So it's getting warmer, and to even make it even warmer for me, I've got tea. But as always, I've got my trusty blue bottle of water. Right, so today is the last day. It's not the last day. It's the second to last day before I go on a short vacation. So next week there will be no live stream, but the week after we'll be back. So for today, I thought we might, try something slightly different. I mean, we're trying out new stuff all of the time. So today, I'm still working on making sure that our app looks nice and beautiful on iOS 26 and also on earlier versions of iOS. And there are still some places in the UI that need to be updated. And we can take a quick look at that. And then I'm going to tell you what we are going to do. So let's go to this screen here and then open this up in Xcode. Let me move the Xcode window so that you can see it. This is mostly where we left off last time. Nope. Let's use a Pro model. So I don't know what's still running here. Nothing should be running. All right. Cool. So, in the process of building this app, I also built a couple of components. One of them was the conversation kit component that we worked on in the past couple of streams. And it is a chat interface. Right? So we're still compiling. So that's a chat interface. But there are also two other components that I built, and I've also talked about them or written about them before. So one of them is an authentication flow. And let's walk through this real quick. So I'm going to sign out here. Yes, let's turn off all the breakpoints. Okay, so when you tap on the sign in button, you'll get this nice little sheet here, and then you can either log in using email and password, or you can log in using sign in with Apple. And you can already see that this button here looks different than this button here. And that is because this button here uses a plain SwiftUI button, but this one here, I thought I was being smart and styled it so that it looks like the Sign In with Apple button that you can see in Apple's own UI. But the problem is, I did not take into consideration that Apple might be changing the way how the UI looks and feels on iOS 26. So now it looks outdated. So let's see, test.com. So now this button turns blue. Also, there is this nice little thing when you don't have an account yet. You can tap on login, and then it will allow you to sign up or log in. So you can switch depending on what you need. You will also notice that the sign in button here, Sign In with Apple button, changes the title slightly. So now it's Sign In with Apple or Sign Up with Apple. And that is different from how the built-in button looks like, because the built-in button, so Apple does have a built-in button that I could have used. And I actually did consider doing that, because why not use what's there? But one of the things that I didn't like about the built-in button is that it doesn't automatically adjust the label to the context. Or at least I didn't find the way to do that. Maybe there is. If you know a way to do that, let me know. So that is one thing. So I thought we could update this button here to make it look better. And also there is a sign in with Google button that's not yet hooked up. So, that is something that we could do. And then the other thing is, it actually does not work if we're not signed in. So let's sign in, and now I need a password. While I'm looking for the password, oh, wrong button. Also, while I'm looking for the password, why don't you say hello? And hello to the people who just tuned in. We're working on something special today. So here is my Sign In with Apple password. Paste, sign in. All right, so here's the other thing. So we've got this, this list view here. And now when I scroll this to the side, I can tap on this more thing here. And then this action menu scrolls up. So now you might be saying, well, shouldn't you be using a context menu like many of Apple's other apps do? And maybe yes, but I thought, this is a nice thing to implement. I've written a blog post about how I did that on my blog. And Apple uses a menu like that in the email app. So everybody uses the email app on a regular basis, I think. I don't know. And depending on which generation you belong to, probably you use it more or less. I think my kids don't use the email app that often. Maybe that will change once they go into a job. But, everybody, I think most people do use the email app at one point. So, and this entire thing here has a couple of issues on iOS 26. So first of all, we've got this done button here, and while this might have looked nice on iOS 18, on iOS 26 we should use a checkmark button here. Like if you watched the last live stream, you know what we did to implement that in the rest of the chat UI. And then the other thing is, so this sheet here has more content than is visible on the screen. So I want to look into if that is possible to make sure that it scrolls up to use exactly the right amount of space. And I recently came across a blog post that explains how to do that. So this one here is by Philip Nemecek. I hope I'm not butchering your name here, Philip. And Philip writes about this exact thing. So here is his demo app, and it has a dynamic font size to fill up the sheet more or less, and you can see that the sheet always consumes as much space as the content. So that is what I want to try out, and it's, you know, it's easy enough. So basically what he's using is the onGeometry change property, view modifier. So, you know, I want to use this in this action sheet thing. And maybe let's start with that. So I'm going to close this window here because we will go into a different folder to work on the action menu. So the action menu, that is actually, you know, if you want to use it, it is public. So you can go and clone this repository and use it in your app. And today we're going to make it better. Nice. So here is a sample app. Let's go into this one here and open it in Xcode. And now for the special sauce. So I'm going to use Gemini to do the work. So typically I put it to the left-hand side, and while you're still thinking about what you can let me know about what you're drinking or what's the temperature on your end, I'm just going to hide the chat view. All right, I'll bring it back. And if you text me, I will answer. All right, so the Gemini CLI lets us use the CLI to talk with Gemini. So you know, and it has a couple of commands. So, you know, we can start with something simple. So, let's just start easy to verify things are working fine. So maybe let's start with exploring the code. Tell me what this project does. All right, so it starts off by reading the README, which is always a smart idea. So definitely read the README as the first thing to do. And then it says, all right, so I'm going to read more code. So it goes into the ActionMenu file, and we can do the same over here. So it goes here to read what the menu does and how it works like. It also looks at the sample application to understand it more. And then it talks about the core functionality, the usage, and an example. All right, so it's a reusable SwiftUI component that provides an action menu. This menu slides up from the bottom of the screen as a sheet to present a list of buttons to the user. Amazing. So now let me run this app, and then let's take a look at the problem. So this is just a simple UI here, and then we can swipe to the left and call up the action menu. And you can see that for this menu, it's really, you know, just nice. So it's just enough space. So we can uppercase the banana or lowercase it. So the first thing that I want to do is add another operation to this action menu here so that we can actually see the problem. In the sample application, can you please add another item to the menu? And we can actually refer to a file. So this is content view. I mean, I probably wouldn't have to do that because Gemini should be smart enough to detect that. So, all right, nice. So it adds a duplicate action. So it has apparently understood what we're doing here, and then it adds another action here. And then it asks me whether I want to allow the change. So for now, let's just work on, on the basis of approving everything so that we can see what is going on. So I'm going to approve this, finalizing the button integration. And it has added this thing. So let's run this again. And now we should have one more item. So here we go, duplicate. So we've got two bananas now. Let's uppercase one and lowercase the other one, just for funsies. Nice. Okay. And we can already see that this thing down here is clipped. Nice. When I open the action menu, some of the items are clipped. The last item, the delete item, is now clipped. I would like to make sure that the sheet always consumes as much space as its content. Can you come up with a strategy to make sure that the sheet always just consumes the space of its content? A little bit of rambling here. Please don't implement this yet. Just let's consider options for now. So I found that Gemini CLI is pretty eager to go and implement stuff. Earlier today I was working on something and it did the thing that I asked it for, even though I said, please don't implement yet. So I said, blah, 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 and let's just think about it. Please don't implement it yet. It did implement it, and then it said, oh, and by the way, there are some other things that I can also do. Do you want me to implement them? And then it didn't just wait for me to confirm and just kept on going. So I was pretty stern with it after that. All right, so let's see. So it read the code and then said, the root cause of the clipping is that the sheet containing the action menu has a fixed set of sizes called detents. In the current implementation, it's set to medium and large. If the content of the menu is taller than the medium detent, but not tall enough to warrant switching to large, the content will be clipped. So what is the strategy? Dynamically calculate the height. Nice. Set a custom presentation detent for the sheet. Nice. And here is the plan. Measure the content height. Okay, so now it gets interesting. Using a combination of preference key and geometry reader. This is a standard SwiftUI pattern for parsing layout information up the view hierarchy. That is correct. It is not wrong, but it's also not the most modern way to do it, as we know from Philip's blog post. And let's see what. So, new with iOS 18. So Let's take a quick look at the package configuration to see what our target is. Okay, so we are saying that our target is iOS 17. So Gemini is in the right to try to implement something that works for iOS 17. So we'll have to negotiate that we want something more modern. So, okay, so measure the content height, store the content height in a preference key. Apply the dynamic detent and then use the height calculated height. So let's see if this also aligns with what, yep, so this is exactly what Philip used here. Okay, so now let's talk about the more modern way to do it. Okay, I really like your implementation plan, but there is one small issue we need to talk about. Starting with iOS 18, there is a more modern way to do this. Instead of using a geometry reader, we can use the onGeometry change view modifier. All right, so sometimes Super Whisper has a hard time understanding what you are talking about. onGeometry change, like this. Can you come up with a plan to use this view modifier instead? Also tell me what we should do about backwards compatibility. Please do not implement yet. I want to keep on discussing. Nice. Cheers to that. All right, so let's make this larger so we can read more. Okay. So, excellent point. You're absolutely right that on geometry change off, for off. Okay, yeah. Is the more modern and efficient way to handle this, introduced in iOS 18. It avoids the overhead and potential layout side effects of geometry reader. That is absolutely right. Here is the revised strategy. So still use the preference key. Measure with onGeometry change, receive the height and update the state, backwards compatible strategy. So, oh, interesting. README states that the library requires iOS 18 plus. So, let's see. Oh, there we go. It actually says iOS 18 plus. However, if we wanted to support all the versions, we would need a conditional implementation. Here is how we would approach that. No. Yes, I definitely want to support iOS 18 plus. Can you please make sure to also update the package file because I think it still contains iOS 17. Thanks very much. All right, so I will proceed with the implementation. Nice. So, yes, that's nice. Let's do that. I will implement the dynamic sheet height using onGeometry change. That sounds good to me. Okay, so it removes the old presentation detents and then adds the on preference change view modifier using the, this is probably our new preference key. Okay, so if the size is 0, then we will have medium and large, and otherwise we will use the height or large. Okay, and I assume that Swift UI will be smart enough that if we have loads of elements in there, it'll say, well, you know, actually, if you give me a height of, you know, some egregious amount, I'll just use large. And that's something that we should definitely check. Okay, so let's go through with this. Oh, sorry. Just wanted to mute myself and accidentally tapped the wrong button. All right, somebody's asking about the tool I use for audio input. Of course, it's Super Whisper. And I love it. It's amazing, as you can see. Okay. Okay. Ooh, what? What is going on? So, preference key. I have implemented the changes to make the sheet dynamically sized to its content. However, I must correct my previous implementation plan. Yeah, unchanged on geometry change was not the right tool for measuring the view's height. Why? That is pretty interesting. Well, okay, we'll have to discuss about that. I mean, like, did it? There is no test, no nothing that I can run to do that. Okay, so, all right, so it wants to build a project. Let's see if that works. Interesting. So it wants to build for iPhone 15 running iOS 18. Also, I'm interested. Do you guys think that the next iPhone will also be called iPhone 26? So that all of the names will be homogeneous? Let me know. Let's bring back the chat and then you can tell me. Actually, let's create a poll. So where is the poll? All right. Yep, so the simulator didn't exist. So it was smart enough to find out which other simulators exist. Allow execution of Xcode build. Yes, we do. Okay, so there was a compiler error about default value for the preference key. All right, so it needs to make a change. Yes, let's do that. Okay, updating the deployment target. Okay, I'm going to allow this always. Let's see if that was a mistake. All right, so let's see if this was successful by running this on the simulator ourselves. So here we have our little application, and it does not look like it worked out. Well, let's review the code. So we have our preference key. We use the geometry reader, and here it gets propagated into our modifier, and here it's being used. And what was that about? I mean, so it did end up using on preference change, right? So that is quite interesting. So let's take a look at Philip's blog. So he does it slightly differently, right? So he has, so he uses on geometry change 4 and then the CG size and gets a proxy, and the proxy has the size. And then he stores it in self.contentHide. Okay, so that is because he's not in a component. We would all right, so now I'm okay. I don't know if we actually need to use this here. So let's check ourselves. So on geometry change 4 of, okay, so I think this is the one that we want for CG size.self. And there is no off. Off nothing. Oh, off is the closure. Proxy in. Okay. Okay, so here we've got another piece of code, proxy.size, and then menu content size equals new value. Okay, so this is probably how it should be, right? So let's quickly disable this and then run this just to see if this works at all. No. Why? Okay, so maybe it doesn't work. Who knows? Um, oh. Height, content height. So the content height is a CG float. Okay, let's try this. Oops. Okay. That is definitely not what I was expecting. Okay, so to verify this whole strategy works in the first place, what we're going to do is we are going to create a new file. And I need to make some space here. Okay, so content view 2, and then where is our app? Here we go, content view 2. Let's see. Okay, so it does work. Well, so what we're going to do is I'm going to roll this back and then let's talk more with Gemini to tell it that we don't want to use the content, the preference key. Because I think we can just, we should be able to keep the state on the action view modifier, right? That is one of the reasons why I implemented this as a modifier, as a proper modifier, so that we can store stuff in the modifier itself. So often when you implement a view modifier, you will just use what's essentially just like an extension method, and this will put something into the environment, which is fine, right? But sometimes you want to keep stuff around in a place where you can access that more easily, and that typically should go in the modifier, and that is the moment when you have to implement a proper view modifier. So let's go back to Gemini and complain. And I'm going to hide the chat for a moment here. So actually, I think we don't need to use a preference key because we are in a view modifier and we can just store the content height in a state property on the view modifier itself. So please remove and then change the implementation accordingly. All right, so let's see. All right, so it's still thinking. Can you see that? Yes, you can. I mean, the interesting thing is I could have probably implemented this myself by just copying and pasting Philip's code, right? So I've got the impression that Swift code or generating Swift code is harder than generating, let's say, JavaScript. Okay, so remove the content size key, the menu content size key. Don't do any size measurement. Update the action. So it's basically going back to what we had before. Oh, use the geometry reader. Okay, so be my guest. Let's try that. And it wants to build. Build succeeded. Let's try it out. Oh. Oh. This is not what we wanted. Unfortunately, this is not working. Instead, the sheet has a size of 0. Can you try to come up with reasons why this code might not be working as intended? Please don't make any changes. Let's first discuss. That is hilarious. Oh, you can't see it. Okay, so Franklin just said, I was vibing while coding and Gemini CLI told me it ran out of ideas and started generating JavaScript. That is hilarious. JavaScript is the escape hatch, isn't it? Okay, so let's see what it thinks. Likely reasons. The on-appear timing is wrong. Most probable cause. State update scope. So it wants to use a preference key. Okay, so what we will do before we do that, we'll just say, so we'll hard code this. Oops. CG size. I don't know, 320 times 400. So this seems to indicate that setting the size does work. Okay. You are mistaken. I have just made a small modification to your code to analyze if setting the content size from inside the closure works. And I've set the height to 800. When running the application, the sheet actually has a height of 800. To me, this is a clear indication that this approach does indeed work. So, what is wrong? So, what? Really? Okay, so the strategy is to simply replace the background combination with a much cleaner on geometry change. Well, all right, go ahead, let's give it a try. Okay, so now we're removing the background and geometry reader, and it's using a on geometry change, and that looks exactly like the code that Philip wrote. That does look more correct. Okay, while we're waiting, folks, any more thoughts on whether it's going to be called iPhone 17 or iPhone 26? I'm going to close the poll, or has it already closed? So the majority of you, let's end it, seem to think, we can't see it on screen here, but you can see it in the chat pod in YouTube. The majority seems to think that it's going to be called iOS 17, and only a third of you think it's going to be called iOS 26. So we'll see. I actually don't know, but I guess it's going to be iPhone 17. Right, so let's check this out. Ooh. What happened? What happened here? Oh no. What is that? I mean, I mean, maybe that is the problem here, right? So we've got our menu content size here. It's initially 0. Then we have our on geometry change that uses the proxy. It takes the proxy size, it stores it here, we're getting here, and then we're setting the new height. And again, let's try G size width height 320 2800. So what happened here? That is really what is the reason we have this funny look and feel? All right, so let's discard this for a moment here. So let's uncomment this. I'm really confused because okay, so I have the impression that the size is computed very, very early on, and we probably need to do that later on. Okay. Okay, let's go back to this here. Okay, so the problem is the content that I display in this sheet is now squished together. And then let's show it what we actually do. Here is the content I want to display inside the sheet. Can you think of reasons why this might not work? There is a mismatch between what we are measuring and what is actually being displayed. So we are measuring the raw size of this content block by itself. This raw content block is then placed inside a list within the action menu view, which adds more stuff around it. The solution is to measure the list itself. Oh, that actually makes a lot of sense, I think. So let's take a look. So here's our action menu. We use the action view modifier. Here's our modifier. We've got our body, show a sheet. Here's the action menu. And then here is our list. There we go. And here we put the content. Okay, so I think it is right. So this brings us back to the preference key pattern. Yes, I think you are right. Can you please suggest a way to implement this? Don't code yet. So this is actually quite interesting. So let's think about how we would implement this, right? So we've got our action menu. Where's our so instead of putting the geometry change here, we would have to put it on the list. So it would have to go here. And then we'd have to put it into a preference key so that we can then read it in our modifier here. So reintroduce the preference key. Measure the content inside the lists. Yep. No, I don't want to use, please don't use Geometry Reader. Please do not use Geometry Reader. Let's continue using please revise your plan and show it to me before we go into the implementation phase. So let's see what it comes up with. You are right to push for a better solution, and I appreciate your patience. Using on-geometry change is the correct modern approach, and my previous attempts failed to apply it to the correct view. Okay, pass a binding to the action menu. Interesting. The action menu modifier will continue to hold the content menu size. Okay. Let's do it. So I'm already almost done on the T. Okay. Well, let's do it. Yes. So, let's see. Oh my God. But, I mean, at least all the items have now their proper height. Okay. So, we made progress. All the items have the correct height. However, unfortunately, the sheet now has a size of 0. Can you please review your code and identify what's the problem? So we're passing the content size here. It's a binding. Uncovering new perspective. I love it. What? Okay, so my last implementation attached on geometry change to the list view itself. A list is designed to fill all the space it's given. When the sheet is presented, the list tries to determine its size from its container. So this creates a circular dependency, a catch-22 of layout. The sheet needs to know the list height to set its own intent, but the list needs to know the sheet's height to determine its own size. So the list initially reports a size of 0. This is reported up to the ActionMenu modifier. And so the height is 0. Okay, so now it wants to measure this inside the list. That is interesting. So basically here, okay, go ahead. Go ahead. I am not entirely sure this is going to work. Oh, you guys can't see this. And we're back to Geometry Reader. Really? calibrating the flux capacitor. Nice. So, I mean, at this point, the real question is, will we be able to implement this before the context is completely used up? All right, we're back to the geometry reader. Let's see. I mean, we could have used the on geometry change, right? Nope, that doesn't work either. The next logical step would be commit this changes to your version control. I don't think so. Unfortunately, this does not work either. Also, why are you always going back to the geometry reader? I told you to not do that. Let's keep on using on geometry change. So one idea that I have is so here we execute the content closure, and maybe instead of doing that, we can execute the closure here. So, so now it wants to use a VStack. Yes, please try that. Not sure if this is going to work. So, okay, so we've got the VStack around the content. We remove the geometry reader. We use the on geometry change with the proxy. Okay, while it is compiling, we can also compile and test this and see. Okay, we're back. Okay, so what we can do, let's give it a try, and so I'm gonna so let's see how that works. Nope. So Is this the solution? Nope. Oh, okay. So we're putting it into a list. Maybe that is the reason why. So let's go back here and then right, so this is now exactly the height of the text here. So if we, where is our text? So if we remove that, what will happen? Same thing. Okay, so okay, so this seems to work. Now let's uncomment this stuff here. Yeah, so I think this needs to happen later. So when the layout has concluded. All right, so what's this? Maybe we need to use this. On scroll geometry change. So this is still not working. I wonder if we can somehow use on scroll geometry change. What do you think? So this is an excellent idea and the correct solution. Well, okay, let's give it a try. All right, so, well, let's see. Let's see. So it had the wrong signature. Ooh! Well, but we're back to here. Well, so I assume that we are currently running into the case where it's 0, right? Because in that case, it will use medium and large. Yep, exactly. Well, let's set a breakpoint and see what goes on. Yep. So how long until Gemini recommends Geometry Reader again? Carvesoft has a morphing menu. Yep, you can take bets. Okay, so let's see, what's the content size here? So no height, right? Okay, so it's literally 0. Now we get something. So still 0. Oh, here we go. So we get content size, new size, So let's print the size here. Let's see. And let's actually show this. 0, 0, 434. Good. So and what I'm going to do now is okay, it's using 0. Okay, let's try something else. So I'm going to 434, right? That was what we had. Oh yes, you are right. CG size. Hello. CG size 402, 434. So, ooh. $434 apparently is not the correct size. What about 450? Let's do 600. So what I wonder is, so first of all, maybe, so let's figure out what's the correct size. So 450 seems to be a good size. And then also, what I also want to see is the new size. Okay, And we actually have this on our list, right? So maybe it is a question of where we put it. Let's put it at the very end. Nope, so it still says 434. So hopefully it changes when we turn this one off. Yep, so it does. On geometry change for CG self. Nope. Dot on geometry change G size self of proxy in proxy dot, oh, so that's the size of the container view. So here we have container size and content size. That is interesting. All right, so well, I have been hoping oh, wait. This won't compile. Well, it does. Well. So, wait, did it work? That would be just fantastic. Curious face. And now. Ooh. Ta-da. Yep. Give me all those ta-das. So, but okay, let's to be extra sure, let's uncomment this one here. Oh no! Why? So we get the container. I mean, this is not why? Come on. Why is so? What is the reason this is now supersized? This is any idea? This is really funny. So first of all, I think we should not do this. For whatever reason, and this now feels like something where SwiftUI has gotten a hiccup. So I'm not entirely sure why we're getting, why we're always getting this size. The visible rect of the, Nope, this is back to where we were. Okay, so okay, people using SwiftUI Inspector. Geometry Reader. Make a text view, fill its container with a frame modifier. Yeah, this is using .infinity. So I think what we need to do is we somehow need to get the intrinsic size, right? So height, size, no, why did you recommend this in the first place? So here we go. Oh. So he's using a task, or they are using a task here. That is interesting. Dynamic height Shiva. See, that is exactly what we need. Okay, so let's see what they do. So they use a scroll view in the first place, and then backgrounds to color the clear update. Oops. And we're back. Okay. Yeah, I mean, yeah, so here is an interesting thing, and I think that is what's really the solution. So they compute the content in the initializer. All right, so, and that is actually something that I had been thinking about before. So let's go back and roll some of this back. So they're using a geometry reader. So and do they do that? So they are doing this on the sheet content. So first of all, I don't want to commit anything. I've got a different idea. Can you please go back and implement an on geometry change view modifier on the content. And then after we've got that, we will resolve the content in the initializer. Also, it's just slightly getting cooler in here. So, yep, this is what I want. Yeah, we can remove that. Okay, running the build, we can do the same over here. Yeah, this looks not great. So addressing user expectations. So hello. No, I don't want to do that. So when you look at the initializer of our component, you will see the following line. I think what we should do is to not keep the closure in a local property on our component, but instead resolve the closure in the initializer. Can you do that? Please show me your implementation plan first and then wait for my confirmation before you implement this. I love the positivity here. That's a great suggestion for improving the components design. Storing the resolved view instead of the closure makes the action menu struct simpler and its body more direct. So yes, we need to change the content property type from a closure to a concrete view type of content. This means the struct will hold the view itself, not a function that creates it. Update the initializer. Yep, that's correct. Update the body property. Yep. So that all looks good to me. That all looks good to me. Please go ahead and implement this. Let's see. Suspense. This looks good to me. Oh no. Why? Oh. Okay, so okay. I think we need to do the same on the action menu view modifier. There is a line that looks like the following. I think we need to do the same here. Can you do that? Please show me your implementation plan first. Okay. Yes. Look at that. So, here is the text that asked me for my confirmation, and then, it kept on doing stuff and then says, okay, I will implement the refactoring. Well, yes, go ahead. No. Why? Why, oh why? So I'm going to roll this one back. So this is escaping. Nope. Okay, so they had another trick here, which was to use the .task. And they also used the geometry reader. Maybe it is the geometry reader after all. Who knows? So and that is the menu content size. Actually, let's call it the height. height, and that is a CG float. So today I thought it was going to be a quick one, but nope. All right, so this is even worse. But now we're back to the 0 case, right? So let's actually make that easier to see by doing this. Yep. Well, well, well. And I thought this was going to be an easy one. So let's print the size. Proxy dot size. And then we need to return this. Right. Okay. So if it's true what we established last time, a couple of minutes ago, then the menu content, that is, and if we go back, that is the stuff in here. So we can try something like this. Let's see. Nope, that doesn't help either. scroll view. What was the name of that again? On scroll geometry, change for CG size dot self of proxy in code action do something. Okay, so return proxy dot container size, proxy container size, and then we've got the proxy dot content size. What? Good luck. Yeah. So we need to return a CG size. There is no placeholder anymore. So the proxy container size ended up being 470-ish. So if we $417. So maybe it's not such a good idea to do this here. Let's do it this way around. And now this is escaping. No. Why? I mean, this is what we had. This is also what we had. Let's just do medium. All right, so this is not the reason why it's looking funny. That is interesting. So putting an on-geometry change on the content, just putting an empty one on there makes it look funny. Huh. Really? Why? Why? Okay, so we'll remove this because it doesn't seem to help. So now next step is to compute the content right here. So the container size 470, content size 373-ish. If we uncomment this, what do we get? So proxy content size is larger and the container size is still 470. So I don't think that and let's put another one in here. Oops. Okay. So the proxy content size is now 495. Okay. See? So I somehow worry that we won't be able to actually figure out what is the intrinsic content size. So where is our hard-coded value, right? So 529 but that is not anything that we get from anywhere. See, 529, nope. What happens if we don't set any d10s? So that makes the list larger. So the proxy content size, that seems to be a number that is reasonably close to what we need here. Right? It's first 0 and then it grows. So, and then, so 529 minus 495, that is 34, whatever that is. So if I uncomment this, so proxy content size is what we're interested in. 430 something. And if we add 34 to that, we're at 468, which is about 470, which seemed to be a good size for that. And then if we uncomment this, we get 473, which is 407, which doesn't seem too bad. Okay. Okay, so here's one last thing that I'm gonna try, and then we'll actually wrap up. So I want to pass down the proxy content size. So okay. So let's find the place where we measure that. Proxy content size. So I played around with the code a little bit. If you look at the code, you will find a line that looks like the following. I think the proxy.content size is what we need in our d10s. Can you please pass it to the correct position and then use it in the code to determine the detent. So this plan is clean, uses the correct modern API you've identified. Okay, so we'll reintroduce the binding. We measure with on scroll geometry change, and then we'll update the action modifier. Good. Okay, so this looks good. Okay, so let's take a look. Okay, well, I think while this might not be exactly what we want, so we need to go to where we compute the content size. All right, so let's add all right, this looks good. Let's add one more. Still looking good. Adding one more. So I get a warning about the stream. I don't know what is up with the stream. So let's take a look. Ah, okay. No problem. All right, so this is looking nice. So let's now remove most of them and then see what happens now. This is still looking good. Well, I mean, we've worked hard for this, right? Ah, my goodness. So, let's do one more thing because I'm really curious. let's bring in our good friend border dot red. Also a couple party poppers. Okay, so that is our list. Yeah, so this is the entire thing. So I'm guessing this part here is the extra 34 pixels. All right, so let's get a new find out to iTerm. So this we don't need, and this are all our changes. And then I guess we can delete content U2. And let's ask Gemini for a nice commit message. Okay, so I think we've achieved what we set out to do. Can you please create a commit message using Gitmoji? Okay, so the message looks good to me. But I'd rather do this myself. Oh, this is not... All right. I mean, I could have asked Gemini to perform the commit for me. Okay. Well, this is not a main enhancement, is it? Okay. This is part of the change, like that. So, now, should we run this on iOS 18? Let's give it a try. I'm mildly scared. Let's see. Well, this does look good to me. Yep. Whew. Nice. I'm glad it worked out in the end. Nice. Okay, so with that done, I think what we can do is, oh, what is that? Oh, okay. Well, that's okay. I mean, we should probably fix this. Where is the data? Yeah, it's a problem of, because we're using the identity of the elements as their identity. If we duplicate the pineapple, it will be a duplicate. So, and that is why SwiftUI is complaining here. That is completely fine. That is completely fine. Good, so this is on head. How did we do this in the past? Did I committed straight into main like a savage, didn't I? Yep. Okay. Let's do it. Commit. Push. Good. I'm not gonna fix the button because we've streamed for, I don't know, what is the total stream time? 2.5 hours. I actually thought we were gonna finish in less than an hour. All right, so, let's quickly go back to talking. So that was quite the ride. And I hope if you've watched the entire thing, congrats and thanks for staying with me. I really appreciate it. As you can see, stuff is sometimes a challenge. I don't know if this is the best implementation, but to me it looks like it is a viable implementation. If you find any issues with the code, it's open source, so you can go there and submit a pull request, and I'll definitely review that. And feel free to use it in your own code. And I'll probably fix the iOS 26 button either, on the next stream or maybe in between. Anyways, so let me quickly have a look at my calendar so I can tell you when we're going on the next stream. Calendar. So I'm out next week. And then I think, oh yeah, so there is going to be a live stream on my channel on August 25th. And there is going to be a live stream on the Firebase channel on August 26th. And we are going to have two guests on, Ryan and Andrew from the team that builds the Firebase iOS SDK. And we're gonna speak with them about Firebase AI logic and how you can use it to build to bring AI into your iOS apps. And I think they've got a couple of really new and exciting things to talk about. So I'm really excited about that, and I'm really looking forward to that. So totally recommend joining that stream as well. So August 25th, come join me on this channel. August 26th, come join me on the Firebase channel. And with that, let's play the outro. Thanks for joining, everybody, and I will see you in the next one.